Hey guys, it's Zach. Just got done with work. It was a wonderful Monday, and hopefully the rest of the week goes well. And I hope everyone else's Monday was well. Even though you probably won't be listening to this on a Monday, I hope that whatever day you're listening to this on was well. So, Christians and sin. Okay. We're not really going to touch too much on the fact about the people who don't come to Christianity because they think that Christians are a bunch of people that walk around and don't sin. Because we do. We're just as messed up as everybody else. We're not going to talk about that so much today as we're going to talk about purging, what I call purging the sin. I found the antidote to not ridding sin completely. That's saved for when God returns to get His people. But I've found an antidote to purge out some of that, to help us be a little bit lighter, and a little bit feeling better in our walk with Christ, and maybe even get closer to Christ through this. Not maybe, but you will. And I talk about this so much, but on the third day, when Jesus rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, He sent a helper. The Bible tells us that a helper will be sent to us, and that helper is the Holy Spirit, and it dwells in each one of us. And I know I'm always talking about the Spirit. It's just so important that you're aware of that. Paul, in the book of Romans, which I'm reading right now, talks about the Spirit in constant. And it's just a wonderful thing, because in our body, we're sick. We're sick individuals, and we're destined to death. It all started in the Garden of Eden, and now here we are. A couple thousand years later, here we are. And nothing has changed. But with that in mind, we're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. But by His grace, we're saved. So, we have two things going on here. In our bodies, in our minds, in our overall lives, we have the Spirit of Christ, we have the Spirit of life and of light, and the King whom reigns in each and every one of us who believe and who have faith. But we also have sin. We have the sinful nature that originated so long ago in the Garden of Eden, and we still carry that burden with us today. But what I want to talk about is how to purge that sin. Like I said, not to rid it completely, that's not possible, but to purge some of that so we feel lighter, and we can see God a little bit closer. We can shine in His light just a little brighter, and yeah, that's the main thing I want to talk about, and that is the Spirit. Paul says in the book of Romans that he knows what he has to do, but he just doesn't do it. But what he does do, he hates. He talks about a war in his mind that's going on. And that is, when you hear people talk about spiritual warfare, and Paul was struggling with the exact same things we are. And it wasn't that Paul was any better than each and every one of us. But his heart for God and his faith and just love of Jesus allowed him to purge some of that sin. See, what happens when, and God can use you. See what happens when you purge out the sin, and you purge out that evil, sinful nature in all of us. When you purge that and push that out, and allow the Spirit to fill you, the devil runs from you. The Bible tells us that when we're close with God, and when we When we call on God's name for help, the devil will flee. He doesn't stand a chance in the grand scheme of things. And when Jesus finally decides to come back and get his people once and for all, we will all see that. Though I believe that now, I won't actually see it until it all goes down, and it's going to be a wonderful day when we're just reunited with Jesus. So, excuse me. As we're ridding ourselves of that sin, some of the weight of that sin, and we're filling ourselves in the Spirit by prayer, by reading scriptures, by fellowship, by serving, and just becoming a servant to others. We're gonna feel different. We're gonna start to act different. We might even look different. The Bible tells us that in the Psalms that Christians have a radiance to them. Those who walk in the light have a radiance to them. We're not walking in the dark. And that's something that will change us. And this all starts when we decide to fill ourselves with the Spirit and rid ourselves of sin. I wish it was as simple as we could stop sinning. And in the book of Romans, if you want to read closer, Paul talks about this. He has, in his mind, that there's just these evil forces that are just always pushing and pulling and fighting for territory. One quote that I just want to mention in closing here is Pastor Rick Warren of Saddleback Church said, "Don't believe everything you think." See, your mind is a dangerous thing. It can be a deadly. It can be a deadly combination of thoughts, or it can be a wonderful thing. But don't believe everything you think. Right along with that verse we're talking about, Paul has all these thoughts in his head. Everything that comes through your mind is not true. Satan will send a thought, he'll send an image, he'll send an action, he'll send something into your mind. And that is when you turn to the Spirit and you pray to God and you just ask for help in fighting. Everybody who's went to battle with Christ at their back has won. In one way or another, they've won. Now, you may not win overnight, but rest assured that you can do it, depending on the Spirit and everything else we talked about. So that's all I got for now. I hope this message was able to help somebody who may be in the same position as I am. And until next time, thanks for listening.